I went on my knees every single day, because at the children's home, I never had anyone. Most children they still had their families, even though it was dysfunctional. They still had places to go. So for a year, I would go on my knees and I would ask God, I'd be like, Lord, I pray that you send me someone that I can go to. I was only asking for someone to go to on weekends. But God gave me obviously so much more than what, like Paul says, God is able to do immeasurably more than what we can ever ask, or think.
Hello and welcome to the Follow Forward podcast. It's real stories, global voices, and Christ-centered servant leadership. And my guest today is coming all the way from Rotterdam in the Netherlands. This is Ode Fulutudilu. Welcome, Ode.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Great to have you. So the Follow Forward podcast, the whole idea of the Follow Forward podcast is that when Paul says in the Bible, I follow my example as I follow the example of Christ, we want to elevate this topic of servant leadership and say that we can only be effective in life in as much as we are following Christ. And that we as people following Christ, we want to also set that example that others can follow. So I'm contacting through the podcast with friends from around the world who I think have done incredible things, but are keeping their eyes firmly fixed on Jesus, which I think sums you up, Ode. But I want to take you back. We're going to go back first. We're not going to go back all the way. We'll get there because I know you've written a book, you've shared about your life, but I want to take you back to probably when you were about 14 years old. I reckon was the first time I met you. Just remind me where you were in life at that point when I would have met you for the first time.
Yeah, I was living at the children's home. It was St. Michael's. It was a girls' children's home. It was honestly the best children's home that I had ever been. It was really lovely. And the children's home got me into playing soccer because I saw that I was interested in it, and they invested in me. And through soccer, I met Joel, who was working for you. You were the director there for Ambassadors in Sport, and I actually thought that Joel had asked the children's home for me to stay with. No, but the children's home asked Joel, then like, hey, we have this girl. She doesn't have anywhere to go. Are you willing to take her on weekends? And she was like, yeah, no, definitely. And it was awesome because she had a lot of girls around, so it was a very socialized environment, encouraging, and just surrounded by soccer girls. And I got to meet you guys all at that time. And it was one of the really for me it was a great breakthrough because meeting Joel was something that I had been praying about for many years. So having met her and her taking me in and our relationship growing, and because through her I got to explore the world. I got exposed to so many things that allowed me to have the vision that I was able to pursue.
Yeah, I mean, it's just remarkable how God works. So I remember it must have been 2003, 2004. I can't remember about that time. Joelle had been, I'd met Joelle and she was on, I think, one of our mission teams, 2001. She was on one of our mission teams, became good friends with my late wife, Laura. And we were beginning to see the impact of women's football ministry. At that point, nobody was doing girls or women's football ministry. In fact, it was a hard enough job to get churches to understand soccer ministry amongst men, let alone now crossing over and saying this has to be, fully inclusive, men, women, boys, girl. And I contacted Joelle while she was still in the UK and said to her, I've been praying, and I had been praying about this. And I said, we need someone to come and lead the charge with our women's football ministry. Will you pray about it? And, I think she came over 2002, that kind of time. And the rest is history, really. It's incredible how those simple acts of obedience and steps of faith can bear so much fruit, because not only did Joelle take you in, she mothered you and gave you a place, a home at a critical point in your life. We're going to get into the football now, but briefly share with me then the backstory from, Congo through that led to that point where here's Odie in South Africa in a children's
Yeah,
home,
yeah,
and embarking on this new adventure in her life. But there was a lot to your life even before that point, wasn't there?
yeah. No, no, definitely. So born in Congo. Um, I was born through the woman that birthed me was not the woman that my father was with. So my father took me from her, and his girlfriend at the time raised me. And we had moved from Congo to Angola, and to Angola to South Africa through the fact that my father had two young girls, really small girls, and he wanted to give us a better future, given that Congo and both Angola was so unstable. Just like the rebels, coming into homes, and just like everything was really unstable. So my father, his desire was to give us a better stable environment to grow up in, and South Africa was just one of the places. It was not his destination, but it ended up being his destination. Um, so we flew to South Africa. Me and my stepmother and my sister at the time flew to South Africa. My father stayed behind to raise up more money before joining us in South Africa. While in South Africa, I guess things took a little bit longer than what my stepmother expected. She left me with some friends and said, her father is coming to get her, and she went off. She met someone else,
Wow.
and she went off with that person, and I was left with some friends, and that was really hard for me because as a young girl, I'm not quite sure I fully comprehended what was happening at the time. I remember there was a time when my father was coming to South Africa was still taking longer, so those friends that she left me with took me back to her, and they said, "Look, her father is still not here. Can you take her back?" And she had said, "No, she's not my daughter. She's not my responsibility. You guys need to keep her until her father comes." And that has always ingrained in my. I think I was like, because my father came when I was 6. We went to South Africa when I was 4, so it was in between, either when I was either 5 or something like that. So I remember that very vividly, and just being so confused because that's the only woman that I knew for
Mm.
most of my life up until that point. So I just couldn't understand why I couldn't stay with her, and why I was being isolated from my sister. Up until when my father arrived to South Africa, I don't actually, things were very, I don't actually remember a lot in terms of the friends that I was staying with until when my father arrived. But when my father arrived, it was absolutely amazing. I was so happy. I was finally, with the family member, and he was lovely. He was really lovely. He took me shopping. But he bought me just boys' clothes because he's a man. He doesn't know how to raise a girl. But it was an amazing time when my father came. Yeah, I felt like it was a happiest moment up until that point, that I can really remember. And the beginning was really amazing. My father had enough money. We were staying with some friends, and but as time grew, and my father, the money that he came with to South Africa started dwindling. um Things became much much harder. I wanted to go to school, but he literally only had 50 rand in his left, and he said, "Okay, I can take you to school with this money that I have left." That was the only money he had left. I went to school, and because in South Africa you have to pay regularly, monthly for school. But after 1 month, and I absolutely loved school. I loved being with other children. I somehow, my son actually currently is a little bit similar. When he's around other children, he gets energized. He's so happy. And I can see that, when I was younger, I absolutely just loved being around other children, especially when you're alone most of the time. But at the school, after about a month, they said, "Oh, or maybe it was after a couple of months, they said your father hasn't paid the school fees. You need to go back home, and you can't return until the school fees was paid." And that was heartbreaking because I absolutely loved school. I was about 6 years old or 7. I loved school, and I knew that my father did not have the money for me to go back to school. So I just remember crying all the way home, and because I knew, like, I had no idea if I was ever going to go back to school, because I knew, like, my father did not have the finances to send me back. But after that, I was out of school for a couple of years actually. So that was like, so my foundational education is pretty much non-existent. But when I was with Joelle, she sometimes would try to teach me like pronunciation and spelling. A lot of the things that I know how to write and spell, I know it from memory, not because I actually, like, if you give me a word that I've never heard before, I won't know how to spell it because I literally don't have the foundation, because I never attended school during that period of my life. But also, things started taking its toll on my father. He became extremely abusive physically, in terms of it. I think it's just his frustration on life, how things were not working out how he had planned it. And on top of that, he had this child that he had to look after. He had no money. He was reliant on other people to feed him, to house him, to look after him. He couldn't look after me himself. He couldn't feed me. Um, so over time, a few times he would get like burst of angers and just like beat me up. I was like 7 or so, and and that happened a couple of times. And like during those periods when it would happen, I would just like try to look for something to say something, to just make it stop, to escape or something like that. But even with all that, he was the only parent that I knew that I had, and I absolutely loved him. We were in Joburg at the time. We moved from there. We went to Cape Town because my father's brother who lives in England sent him some money. So he was like, okay, we got some money. Let's go to a different place. And but literally the moment we got to Cape Town, the cycle just started all over again. The money ran out. We ended up living with people, and those people got, after a while they were like, we can't support you. You have a child. You need to work. You need to do something to contribute. And my father wasn't doing that. So in Cape Town, once the money ran out, we went from one place to another. We would like move constantly to whoever would like houses. We lived all the way from Guguletu to Langa, wherever there was a place. Most of the time, we would live, if someone had like a shack and a mattress on the floor, that was us. We would live in a shack on the floor, just wherever we could. So it was a very disruptive and not stable, inconsistent early years.
Yeah, just
From
listening to
from
you, Odie, these are all the ingredients that,
mm,
should lead to a disastrous life,
oh yeah,
and
yeah,
it's all there. Even just listening to it, the trauma must have been horrendous on
mm,
you. Just, how, where did God fit in this with you, and how did you
yeah,
navigate through this season of your life, young as you were?
mm, yeah. Actually, one of the greatest gift that my father gave me was telling me about Christ. When he came from Angola, he had become a Christian. And during that time when we were still in Joburg, he actually shared with me the gospel. He said,
Right.
"Oh, he showed me his pictures. I became a Christian. I got baptized. This is my new name." And he shared with me the gospel. And I remember at like 6 or 7, I remember going on my knees and saying, "Oh Jesus, um, please help us." And I give you my life. If you would please help us, help
Wow.
me and my father, help us, get through these periods. And I think at that moment I had belonged to Christ, even though life didn't get better. Got difficult, even more difficult. But um, but I was also going to church regularly. I loved Sunday school, so I would go to Sunday school regularly. My main motivation for going to Sunday school was because they had food. So I
Yes.
would go to the Sunday school that had the best peanut butter and jam
And
sandwich
let's face it,
that would
Odie,
see
what I
my
know
face.
about you, food is still close to your heart, I'm sure.
Yes, yes, it's still, yeah, it was from the
I'm just
beginning.
going by your
When
Facebook post, that's all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, because I remember like I would hop Sunday school. So a Sunday school that if I went to a Sunday school and they would have peanut butter and jam, but they would not have any butter on it, and I would like choke from it. I'm like, I'm not coming back here next week. So I would go to a different one. So the one that would have the best
Another way
peanut
of
butter
church
jam.
hopping. That's another motive for
Yeah,
church hopping.
yeah. Hey, hey. Sometimes it was the only meal that I got.
Yes. I get it. Sure.
But
But in some ways, you were still
but
connect. You were connecting
yeah.
with faith.
Yes, yes, yeah, no, I absolutely love Sunday school.
Mm,
I got taught a lot. I Now thinking back, I don't remember a lot of it, but I just remember the environment and stuff. But fast forward back in Cape Town, we my father had another incident where he got extremely violent. We were living at the backpackers at the time. He got extremely violent, and police towards me, and was just like he had lost his passport, and I was his translator. His English wasn't very good, so I was trying to translate to the people at the backpackers. Like, he lost his passport, he left it here. He believes that this person took it, and he got frustrated with me how I was translating. He didn't believe that I was communicating correctly, and he just lost it. And it's just like he was beating me up in front of all those people, and they called the police, and the police came, and and the police started beating him up, which absolutely broke my heart.
yeah.
Like, I remember, like, I saw him, like, he was just in the corner beaten up, and I was just like so heartbroken. Like, and I think, like, my one eye, I was looking at him with with one eye. I was just like, I was more heartbroken that, he got beaten up than what had happened to me. Cause, like, in the end of the day, with everything, he was still my father. He was the only person that never left me. He never, like, said, like, oh, you know what, this is too difficult, just go wherever, we go our separate ways or something. He was, he took his responsibilities to look after me. But that was the turning point of my journey, because from there I went to the children's home, which was one of the best things that had ever happened to me.
Mm,
I was able to get food regularly. I was just able to be a child and not worry about all those other things. With my father, I was constantly worried about, are we gonna have is it tonight gonna be the night we're gonna be on the street? Or are we gonna have to choose between eating and sleeping on the street? Are we going to, what's my father's mood is going to be like today? So I was always on eggshells. I was always constantly worried as a child. It's not a child's burden. So having gone to the children's home, all that burden was taken away from me. I was in school, I was fed, I was given clothing, I had a place to sleep constantly. It was absolutely like heaven for me. I absolutely miss my father, and I was surrounded by other children. I was going to school, so it was one of the best things that came out of that horrible situation.
yeah.
As
Y- and in all of
yeah.
that, obviously, you shared about faith, about Jesus, about having prayer life and a knowledge of Him through that. But at the same time, it sounds like you had to learn resilience. You had to learn, just to, um, you know, roll with life's punches literally in an incredible way, without ever becoming a victim that was going to be lost to the world. For
No,
you, what was
definitely, yeah.
that helped you find identity and purpose and
Mm.
meaning?
It would have to be, so my first children's home that I went to was a short term. The one that I went to after that was much longer term. That's where my faith started to grow. That's where I started to pursue God, because we would, at that children's home, we would read the Bible regularly every night, and we would also go to church. So it was a Christian children's home,
Mm.
and that's where I had the Bible. The first book I read was Revelation, which literally, like, it scared me so much that every week that we went to church, I was walking forward to give my life to the Lord, just in case God forgot the last time. So no, that's where my faith really, like, um where, like, it went so deep. Like, at church I was learning, and we were reading the Bible regularly. I was reading the Bible by myself. So that is where I would say my faith started to, to really take roots at
Hmm.
the children's second children's home that I was in at NH Stock.
Sure, sure, incredible. I saw your post last week with
Mm,
your new Netherlands passport and your dual citizenship now with South Africa and the
yeah,
Netherlands. Going back to
yeah.
that time, you had no citizenship at that
Yeah,
time?
for the
You had
yeah,
was it
for the
if you
first.
refugee status still in South Africa, but you had no official residency here?
No, I was a refugee for like 19 years. I got my passport and my citizenship a month before I was due to leave for America for my soccer scholarship.
Mhm,
The Minister of Home Affairs called me because the people that she told. So to rewind before that, so obviously, after any stock, I went to St. Michael's, which is where I met Joelle.
mhm,
And obviously with Joelle, she saw my passion, she saw that I had a talent, and she steered me in the, she always encouraged me and steered me in the right direction, the right teams to join. And through that, so ambassadors, Joelle used to lead like tour groups, women tour groups from America. They would come to South Africa and they would play soccer. And I was like, wow, you can study and play soccer, and they pay for it. And they're like, yeah. So that's where like my imagination started
mm,
growing, because I got to expose to this whole other world that of possibilities. Because before that, when I was at the children's home, I was just like, I knew education was important because my father only completed fourth grade, so he had basically no education, and I saw how that really kept him behind in life. And he's always encouraged me. He was like, no matter what happened, just your education is the most important thing, because of he saw how difficult it made life for him. So I've always knew I wanted to pursue my education for as far as possible. And I've always thought like, oh, after high school, I'll get to college, do something. So until when I met Joas, when like God showed me like, hey, I have so much more
mm,
for you than what your little brain was thinking. And through that, I started dreaming. I started praying and seeking, and and but that whole time I was stateless. I didn't
mm,
belong to any country as a refugee, and I had papers that I had to renew every 3 months. And jo- Joelle was so brave that we would like go to those home affairs area, and there would be a long line, but she would just walk straight in, and we would go straight into the office, get my paper stamped, go right back, and there would still be a long line there. So no, she really fought for me when God really, I needed someone like that who would be strong enough to fight, because there was a lot of fighting that was ahead of us, and
yeah.
Joelle was a perfect person for that.
It reminds me of something I've reflected on a lot, is that people think that resource, as in money, is the main thing they need to solve their problems. I actually think
Mm,
relationships are way more
mm,
powerful. And
yeah,
often, as I travel in Africa and go to some of the toughest places in cities across this continent, I think what the challenge, what's lacking in so many people's lives, is a relationship that will invest in them, that will be that bridge towards opportunity.
yeah,
And often, when that bridge is built, then the resource can flow, because actually there's something to invest in. There's a person who has
yeah,
a way, but without a
mm,
relationship, you don't actually often get those pathways. Which is why it's so important to be investing in people,
yeah,
and finding people who have the right heart and the right mind and the opportunities, and then our time investment into those people can bear
mm,
huge fruit. And when I think of Joelle and your relationship, I see that is
yeah.
just so beautiful to see.
Mm. No, 150%. Because with that, like, with like to show like proof, with having looking back at the children's home, a lot of the children that didn't have anyone to walk with them with life, to invest in them, to build that relationship, literally like more than half of them ended up back at the streets. They they went from the children's home, they went back into the dysfunctional homes, which never they were never able to progress in life. And most of them, either the situation was even worse than what it was before, than when they left their homes. So honestly, like, God was just really but I don't know if I wrote this in my book, but like, I prayed for Joelle for like a year. I went on my knees every single day, because at the children's home, I never had anyone. Most children they still had their families, even though it was dysfunctional. They still had places to go, but I didn't. So for a year, I would go on my knees and I would ask God, I'd be like, Lord, I pray that you send me someone that I can go to. I was only asking for someone to go to on weekends. But God gave me obviously so much more than what, like Paul
Yeah.
says, God is able to do immeasurably more than what we can ever ask. or think.
Yeah.
And that's with Joel, that's what God gave me. And through her, she was able to use her
Yeah.
network. She was able to use her the ability that she had of just like pushing,
Yeah.
until the door, until she pushed the door
That's
over.
incredible.
And
Incredible.
no, it
I
was,
remember
yeah,
some of those
having
years.
her.
The prayer
Mm,
list, the number, like the couple of years that your name was on the prayer list to get the citizenship, to get to the States. And obviously, we had mutual
yeah,
friends, Mike in America and others waiting to receive you. And all we needed was
yeah,
this passport to come through. And in God's
mm,
perfect timing, through a remarkable set of circumstances, that happened. And, I'm so glad you've shared so much of your
mm,
backstory. Obviously, you have written the book. It's called Striking Forward. Is that right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and we will put the link in the show notes for when this podcast gets released, so people can delve more into your story, because I think it's on Amazon, isn't it? They can certainly get hold of it
yeah,
out there some way,
mm,
and follow you on Facebook and Insta. You do the best posts, so people can find out more about you
mm,
that way. But I mean, to really summarize, then what happens in the next number of years of your life? You go to this college, you get your
mm,
your bursary there, you play football and study, then you get
yeah,
picked up by Banyana, start playing
yeah,
for the South African. So now the one who had no passport is now playing
yeah,
for the South African national team, and then
yeah,
you go on to play professional football in
yes,
Europe. And
mm,
so I just a couple of questions around that,
mm,
really. That the first one is, as you went on this journey with the Lord, were there any key lessons that He was teaching you in those
mm,
moments that helped ground you in your faith as you went on this kind of whirlwind journey over those
yeah.
number of?
So my journey with God and with soccer started before I went to America. So it started so when the desire was planted in my heart to play, to get a scholarship and play in America. And I saw the huge mountain in front of me, of being stateless, not having I had nothing. And so I had to go back to God. One of my first questions was, I asked him, is this what you have for me? Because I didn't want to pursue something that was not his will for my life. And he was so clear. I remember there was a game, we were playing a game, and I remember, like Gideon, did the thing. So I remember having a conversation with God. I said, and we were playing a team from America, and I said, if I play well in this game, um, then um then I'll take that as an indication that this is what you have for me. But that was not just like, because there was like many, and that game was like one of my best games. I remember Morgan, who was also coaching, they were just like, they were like, wow, that was amazing. I had like an unbelievable game up until that point of my career. And so that was so clear for me. And at that time I also prayed. I was like, okay, I need a prophet to tell me whether this is what I needed more than one confirmation. And I remember I went to a youth camp, and in the youth camp, I remember the pastor was there, and the whole time I was looking at the pastor, waiting for him to tell me. Nothing happened at that youth camp, so I was a bit disappointed. But when I got home, I got a message on Facebook. It was actually a prophet in England, and he said, because Danielle Davison had done like a Facebook group where they were praying for me to get my passport. And he said, "Oh, I saw this group, and when I saw it, God put this on my heart, and he just prophesied. He said, "Oh, dear, God is calling you to America. He's gonna open this door for you. You're gonna do this. You're gonna go forth. That." And just like when I saw that, I was just like, "Whoa!" Because like it was just confirmation after confirmation. And whenever I opened the Bible, I remember at that time I was going through the book of Isaiah, and I just so happened to be going, and whenever I opened it was like God was literally like pouring and speaking into me. And then there was a time where in Isaiah I was reading through a period where he talks about how the land treats its aliens in the land, how he was telling the people of Israel how they should treat the aliens, and if they mistreat the aliens, that he will step in and and take care of them. And through that, I just felt it was like it was just like so many confirmations. And that's my faith. That's where, like, the foundation of my faith with soccer started, because I knew it was from God, and it was something that God wanted me to pursue with all my heart and with all my soul. And so I went full on. Also, after when I graduated, so each step that I took, I always went back and asked God, is this what you want me to pursue? And the answer has always been yes. And whenever I got a yes, then I move forward. If there was silence, then I just paused, because there was silence between. So when I graduated, Banyana called me, but then I got dropped, and then I had 2 years of inactive football, where I was just playing in South Africa. I was not on the national team. I was waiting for a chance to go to Europe. And that was the year also that God used to really prune me as a person, and as a believer. It was 2 years of, like, pruning, where I had to learn so much. I had to truly there was a lot of I had to reprioritize my priority, for it not to be soccer, but for it to be people, for it to be family. Uh,
Mm.
so there was a lot of things in my heart that God had to rearrange, God had to prune, so that I can, go forth and even flourish even more. So that has, my relationship with God. And so before I went into university, I've always told God, I don't want to have to choose where to go. I want you to choose for me. Therefore, throughout my whole career, only one offer always came forward. So with the university, Joel emailed four universities. Only one team came forward, Lee University. Throughout my playing career, most majority of the time, only one team was like, oh, we're interested. Boom, they provided the contract, and I went for. I most times I didn't really throughout my playing career, I didn't really have more than a lot of options to choose from. But the options that God provided is what I choose, which was my relationship with Him, throughout my soccer career.
Oh, amazing, amazing. I love, in this podcast, I'm talking to a lot of people about this issue of guidance and how the Lord directs. And I love the fact that he speaks to us directly. He's merciful in that way. But then he also gives his confirmations, which you spoke about. But then how, yes, some people, how he knows us and knows what we need and how to speak to our lives. I remember that couple of years you back in Cape Town. And what I remember is how your dedication, that you still trained like a professional, you still gave
Mm,
everything, decided I'm going to live, I'm going to eat, and I'm going to act like a professional soccer player,
yeah,
believing that means I'll be ready for when the door opens.
yeah,
Amazing
yeah.
to me that was, Odie. And to see then, to
No,
watch
that
your
was,
career
yeah.
then flourish from afar was
Mm,
just a celebration, and saying, wow, so often we think when it happens, that's when we'll
mm.
be, but actually, if God has
No,
for us, we get ourselves ready in advance,
yeah,
in the ready
yeah.
for what he's going to open up for us. So
No,
yeah.
because even with that, I had to ask God, is a professional career something that you want me to pursue? And when he said yes, and because when I was playing with Banyana, I had every time I got paid, I saved up my money. So the following year when I was not on the team, so I did what, because God told me, like, I need you to be like Joseph. Joseph, when he went to Pharaoh and he did 7 years of plenty and 7 years of scarce. So God told me that my time of plenty I had to save, because there's gonna come a time of scarce, where
Mm,
I'm gonna need to dig into my time of
yeah.
when I was in plenty. So that's what I did. So when I got dropped, in and I knew that God, I was confident, and I had peace that professional career was in my plate. I just didn't know when it was gonna happen. And I had money to feed myself, to pay a bit of rent, that I was staying with Joel's sister. So I was able to feed myself, to pay rent, and to do all the other things. And because of that, I really felt like God wanted me to just fully get into the rhythm, and literally, like, to live as a professional. And that foundation is what really shot up my professional career, because what I did in that year, I continue to do it throughout my professional career, which
Yeah.
which which is which is I always try to do a little bit more than just a training. And throughout seasons, I always got better and better. And most teams, majority, I would say 90% of the teams always wanted me back, but I always wanted to explore and go to a different country because it's such a short career. I entered in such a late stage of my career. I didn't want to stay in one place for too long.
What an adventure, Odie. And like I said, watching that pan out initially up close when you're in Cape Town, but then further afield and watching the journey was just something that, yeah, we're so grateful. And also how you carried yourself and your faith throughout that into that world of professional football. And we could talk, I mean, look, I could talk football with you on a whole another podcast, and we could talk about your favorite matches and Champions League and World Cups and all of those things. But I think what's so incredible about talking to you is that we understand the origins and what God did in your life, even through
Mm,
those what many would see disqualifying moments in their lives. And so I
mm,
want to end with this question, really, that for young people, as the Message organization, we work with young people. We have this particular focus on African youth in urban
mhm,
underserved communities. And so for young people who feel disqualified, who think that their beginnings, they're too broken for God to use, or don't think there's going to be any opportunity for them to really fulfill God's calling on their life, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to people in that situation?
I would say if you truly pursue the Lord with all your heart and all your soul, and live according to the principles that God has called us to, God is a faithful and good father who will who delights in giving his children good things. Um, the time when I was waiting to become a professional and God was pruning me, I was always constantly pursuing God. That was always my number one pursuit. And God is righteous and He's justice and He's gracious and merciful, that to grow us, but there's a period after that growth where He also wants to bless us. Um, so I personally, I all my friends grew up extremely poor poverty, just like myself. But none of us are living in poverty right now, and all of us are in pursuit of God. So
Mm.
if you are pursuing God with all your heart, living according to His principles, um, there is there is no reason
Uh,
why the good Father will withhold His blessings from you.
and part of that must be healing and wholeness that he wants to bring people
Mm,
into emotionally as well as physically. And I
yeah,
guess it comes back to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness,
yeah,
and all
yeah.
these things added unto you. And you were, righteousness is seeking to live right before the Lord first and foremost,
Mm-hmm. Mm,
trusting him regardless of the circumstances around us, trusting that he is at work in those things. You talk about the pruning and all of those things. And so
yeah.
Odie, you're an inspiration. You're an inspiration to me, and just to see you, obviously now, your husband, child, and everything you're continuing to do. And I think we have, and certainly enough content for another conversation at another point. But I think that has just been so wonderful to hear. I think. Odie, thank you for sharing with such honesty. I think your story is amazing. I encourage people to get your book and to follow your story. There's obviously other interviews you've done that are out there to delve deeper into that. Final word: what is your day to day now? What I mean, you're a mum. Uh, uh,
Yeah.
but is that your full time vocation? I know you're doing writing and other inspirational stuff that you're involved with. What does a
Yeah.
day for Vodie look like now?
I mean, this season of my life, God has called me to be a mother. And this season is short, especially until when my son and God willing future children. Um, when I'm still keeping in contact in women's football. I run a Bible study with some professional players that I've played with. One who plays in Leicester in the Premier League and two in France. So I do a Bible study with them, and I'm hoping that in the future, I'm hoping to maybe get into some agency to help more players to especially African. My heart is for African female players to get into universities first before going into professional, because women's game, or just the game in the women's game, there's not that much money to be going straight from high school into professional game. The game is so short. Like, you're gonna literally, go back after your career is finished. You're gonna go back and be worse off than what you did. So if you have an education, you at least have a good foundation. Then you can go to play pro after that. So that's in the future. That's what God has put on my heart to do. But for now, I'm doing the little bit that I can with the little time that my son gives me, and yeah. But that is majority me right
Wonderful.
now.
Thanks again, Odie. Been brilliant having you on the Follow Forward podcast. This is all about real stories, global voices, Christ-centered servant leadership. You epitomize that. And so we'll have more conversations like that coming up in future episodes. Stay tuned, and thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
Odie, thanks so much. Thank you for listening to the Follow Forward podcast. This may have been my idea, but I worked with an awesome team to make it come to life. Thank you to Lucy for guest management, scheduling, and being a real gap filler. Jordan for taking over the guest management baton, as well as doing content production, scripting assistance, and editing of these podcasts. Alistair and my lovely wife, Christina, for technical production, and Taryn for taking behind-the-scenes content and crew support. Whether you're watching or listening, make sure to hit that subscribe button on whichever platform you are on, and share this episode with your friends so we can inspire even more people together. We release a new episode every Thursday, along with extra content to help you grow as a leader of people and a follower of Christ. Follow my Facebook page at Dr. Tim Tucker to access all the bonus content. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to send a DM or leave a comment letting us know what you enjoyed about the episode. God bless, and we'll see you next week.